Why, hello, folks. How's it going? All right, so check it. This new dev workshop, right? Am I gonna have to do one of those videos again where I just, sort of, vent how I feel about certain other content creators? I don't know, maybe. But I'm gonna say that the reaction to this dev workshop from, like, the Warframe content creator community, if we're gonna call it that, has been, like, the worst fucking unmitigated bitch fest I have seen in a long time. It's like, are we even playing the same game? Are we even looking at these same updates? Man, I've seen people use words like, I don't know, delusional, self-defeating. It's like, what the fuck? It's insane. No, you know me, people. I like having a positive outlook on things. I don't feed into this whole negativity loop that is also prevalent among, Warframe's content creators. And I'm just not going to do it this time either. I'm not going to feed into all of this bullshit about, like, just... Look. Man, it's gonna suck so bad for the developers, right? Putting all of this effort into, like, just... do what is, at its base, a very good idea. Like, just making sure that melee weapons aren't the end-all be-all for anything and everything. That you will be able to, like, use guns as well in the Steel Path. That's cool! That's cool! This is gonna come out, and you're gonna get the new mods, and they're gonna work. We're gonna go through all of these complaints one after another. And, like, suddenly you're gonna be able to use guns in Steel Path in a way that you haven't been able to before. And that's gonna be rad, and that's gonna make the game so much more fun. And all I'm seeing is this incessant bitching and whining. Oh my god. Oh my god. Jesus Christ, get a grip, people. Alright, so a lot of these complaints are I'm gonna call them bass backwards. I'm gonna call them outrage porn, if we're gonna use that word, right? I'm gonna say people are reaching really goddamn hard to find things to be upset about right now. And they're wrong. They're just super wrong about most of these things. Alright, here's my take. Here's my positive take. I'm gonna address the most common criticisms that have been levied against this dev workshop, and I'm gonna give sort of my take on how I feel about it. If you wanna stay on the negative side, that's fine, that's your prerogative. If you want to listen to a different perspective, and if you want to maybe approach this with a different mindset, then, stick around, watch this video. Who knows, I might be able to change a mind or two. If so, I'm gonna consider that mission successful. Hey, number one, bam. People are saying that the condition of on-kill on these new Galvanized mods is gonna be an issue. And it's gonna, like, prevent them from actually being, useful or anything like that. And it should be something like on hit instead. Okay, number one. And this is gonna be a recurring thing here. A lot of these complaints or a lot of these criticisms, I feel, are levied from people who probably aren't playing a whole lot of Steel Path right now. They were hoping that these mods were gonna sort of, like, let them play Steel Path, because their current setup won't allow them to do so. And now they feel like with this condition, they're not gonna do that, these mods. These mods aren't gonna let them play Steel Path because they can't get the ball rolling. And here's what I'm gonna say. Look, on-kill is not a problem. If you're in this mindset, then most likely you are doing something wrong with your approach to Steel Path. Because there are some requirements here. You might be modding your weapons wrong. You might be running with the wrong warframes or just using your abilities the wrong way. But trust me when I say this, getting kills with weapons is not a problem in the Steel Path if you know what you're doing. It's not. But it is not a game mode where anything goes. You cannot enter Steel Path with any weapon, any warframe, any setup, and expect to, be able to function. Because this is endgame content in the way that it exists in Warframe. Endgame content is content that requires you to use gear that you have invested in. It is content that you can't clear by using any weapon, any build, any playstyle. If you could, then that's not endgame content, that's beginner content. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I'm gonna illustrate my point here, okay? Okay? About investment and about bringing the right stuff, okay? So here's what we're gonna do. Check it. Nyx. Great. Weapon. Mark 1 Bratton. That's what we're gonna run in the Steel Path. Now, I'm gonna have to use some other weapons here as well, because, hey, guess what? I'm gonna play against Grenier, and they have those guys who yank your main weapon away from you. So while that happens, I'm probably gonna have to use my pistol until I walk over and pick up my gun again. That's gonna be a thing that happens. So this is what I'm using. I'm gonna using Nyx Prime and my Mark 1 Bratton. This is your classic 8 Forma Mark 1 Bratton, but I'm using it to prove a point, okay? It's got shit crit chance. It's got shit status chance. It's got shit base stats. But it's modded correctly. For a Mark 1 Bratton, I'm not running with crit chance or anything. I'm just increasing fire rate instead, because that works for this weapon. Alright? I'm using a good old Panzer Valpaphyla to spread some viral status, and I'm running a Nyx Prime. Now this is a work in progress. I'm testing some stuff out for Helminth. Tesla Nervos doesn't really work on Nyx. It doesn't really do anything for her, so ignore that. We're just gonna be using your standard Nyx Assimilate build. Here we go. Can't get kills in Steel Path with guns, huh? Let's put this to solo. Let's go Sedna. Let's pick Exterminate, Adaro. Boom, here we go. Alright, so here we go. Now let's see if this is gonna be hard. Nope. That wasn't very hard. See, and like, I kinda have to stress this. It's like, it all comes down to understanding the game. Oh, look at that. Look how long it took for someone to steal my gun. The thing that I said was gonna happen. Now I have to walk over here and pick up my gun again. Now, I'm gonna punish him for doing that. Like, it's all about sort of just understanding, like, just how you run endgame stuff. Like, if you just know what you're doing. See this? Like, I'm just... like, I want to stress this point. When people say, like, oh, no, you can't get kills with guns in Steel Path, you have to use melee. Like, this is a Mark 1 Bratton, okay? That is a Steel Path Heavy Gunner. That is a Steel Path Bombard. Like, that's what we're talking about here. So, you know. Obviously, if I'm actually running Steel Path, I'm not going to use a Mark 1 Bratton. I just wanted to prove a point. So, like, is this on-kill command actually gonna be an issue in the Steel Path? No, it won't. You can kill enemies with guns just fine. And, you know, you might say, oh yeah, sure. If you use that specific Warframe with that specific loadout and the whatnot, then you can do it. It's like, fine, let's do this way. We're not gonna be using a Nyx. We're gonna take my main. We're gonna take Equinox. Equinox is not known as some sort of like beast in Steel Path. It's like it's a middle of the pack Warframe for Steel Path. Alright. So let's run with actual good weapons, shall we? Here, Equinox. I got Kuva Nukor. Let's see what we can make happen. Alright, so this is just me and Kuva Nukor. Activate my ability, activate my ability, activate my ability. Now here we go. So, enemies here. In Steel Path. I'm not armor stripping them. I'm not, you know, applying any sort of weird Warframe abilities. I'm keeping them stun locked with Gloom. because Equinox struggles with survivability. So this is how I stay alive with Equinox in the Steel Path. I'm just one-shotting enemies. I'll pop them once and then I'll just leave because the forced slash procs will kill them most of the time. So like, is this as fast as melee? Not right now. Not right now, because you know why? Because I don't have the new mods yet. I will though. I will have the new mod soon enough. So for now, obviously melee is stronger. But like, look at this. See this? One-shotting, 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 one-shotting. And this is the sort of stuff that people say like, oh, you can't do that. You can't get kills consistently with guns in Steel Path. You have to use melee for that. And like I said, when I see people say that, it kinda just gives me the impression that like it's second-hand information. It's something you'd say if you don't really play Steel Path. And you don't really understand how it works and what works and what doesn't and how you can make things work. But like, trust me, like, as you can see here, I am not struggling with using this Steel Path, like, completing the Steel Path mission, using nothing but my guns. I am not using my melee. I am using my big old Kuva Nukor. I'm not using a Kuva Nukor to first, like, spread viral procs. I'm not cheating with certain like abilities or whatnot. It's a well-built weapon. It's a well-built, strong weapon. And I'm mauling people with it. Hell, look, I can even make this easier for myself. I can use my number 2 ability to make enemies take more damage from my shots. If I really want to guarantee that every, like, shot's gonna be a kill. Just guaranteed one-shots. And, like, that's it. That is how you Steel Path, people. With your guns. Oh, hey, look, we're getting an Acolyte. Is he gonna be a problem, you think? Good old Angst over here? Let's find out. No. Angst was not a problem. Don't need no melee weapons. The next point of criticism I've seen is that, like, on kill will create a larger divide between bad guns and good guns, because you need like one of the good guns to get the ball rolling. Like, I don't know, man, I just show you that with Nyx, okay? I got my kills with my Mark 1 Breton, so that's not entirely true, but like, fine. Say there is some truth to this,
if I may say, operator,
which I like admit there could be, but like the intention for these balance changes that they are gonna like put into place here was never like to make the Stug a good weapon. Like that's not what they're trying to do here. Like the intention was to make the divide between guns and melee weapons smaller. That's it. That's what they're trying to do. So like unless all weapons in the game are like exactly identical, there will always exist a meta where people will gravitate toward the good over the bad. Like there are good and bad melee weapons as well. You don't see anyone bringing like the Ska Knight into the Steel Path. So like the same guns that were good yesterday will still be the good guns tomorrow. And the same guns that were bad yesterday will still be the bad guns tomorrow. And like that shouldn't be held against this update as a point of contention. That shouldn't be a criticism of this update, because that wasn't like a problem that they were trying to fix with this update. Like if you want the Stug to be buffed, then like by all means continue asking DE to buff the Stug. It's just like that wasn't what they were trying to do here. So, you know, it's not what this update is about. Anyway, moving on. I've also heard people say that like the on-kill requirement is gonna suffer from competition from other players or from Warframe abilities. I saw someone say that like, oh, but if you're playing Protea, like your turrets are gonna be killing enemies so fast that you won't be able to get those gun kills in, or like your other teammates in the squad are gonna run ahead of you and they're gonna kill enemies and you won't get any kills. So like, I'm gonna be real with you people. If you can't get kills because other people are killing the enemies too fast, or like your own Warframe abilities are killing the enemies too fast, then you are not playing any sort of content where you'd even need to use these mods, right? You're playing easy content, if that's the case, where you're just fine killing everything with your guns, trust me, just with everything you have right now. These guns would not be a significant upgrade for this. These guns have a very, these mods, they have a very specific use case. It is a specific sort of content where they shine. And that content is Steel Path between the levels 100 and 400. I'm gonna say that sort of content is what these mods were made for. And I'll get to that more in depth when we get further along. But just keep that in mind for now. Next point of criticism I've seen a lie being spread. A lie that people have been spreading, saying that oh, the developers never said that they were gonna nerf melee. No. We thought we would only be getting buffs. And that is a lie. They said as far back as DevStream 152. So we're talking 4 months ago. It's the first time that they brought up that they were looking at doing some melee nerfs. More concrete, DevStream 155, which was a month and a half ago. They said they were gonna nerf melee a bit, which is what they did. I'm gonna get to that. They nerfed melee a bit. It might seem like they nerfed it a lot, but they didn't. And the criticism is all over the place here. We'll get to that. They said they were gonna nerf melee a bit. They said that they were gonna buff guns through mods, not through stat changes. And they said that you would be earning these mods through playing Steel Path. You can go back and check DevStream 155 if you want to. All of this is in there. So, people saying that oh, nerfing and whatnot and this whole system of mods and what, this was never the stated intent. We feel tricked. It's nope. Nope. They said almost 2 months ago that this is exactly what they were gonna do. And now they're doing exactly what they said they were gonna do. So if you're surprised by that now, that means you weren't paying attention. That means you weren't listening to what they were actually saying. Anyway, moving on. Big point I've seen where people have criticized the nerfs, saying that these nerfs are not gonna stop melee from being the best. Even with this, melee is still gonna be super powerful. We're still gonna run the exact same mods. We're not gonna stop using any of these mods, and melee is still gonna be the most powerful. So what's the point of even nerfing in the first place? And here's my question, right? Doesn't that kind of mean that the nerfs are warranted? If you say, and it's correct, it's 100% correct, that you, even after this update, you are gonna be using the exact same mods. You're gonna play the exact same way. And for anything under, I'm going to say Steel Path endurance runs that go into 3 or 4 hours, you are not even going to be noticing a difference. You're not going to be noticing a difference in Berserker. You're not going to be noticing a difference in Condition Overload and Blood Rush. You will only be noticing this difference if you get up to enemies that are level 500, level 600, something like that. Then my question is, doesn't that kinda tell you that these nerfs were warranted? That these mods are insanely overpowered? That they can cut their effectiveness by 30%? And you say this will change nothing. I will still kill enemies so fast that they won't even register on my screen before they're dead. Because that's exactly what's gonna happen. I mean, hell. That sounds to me like that needed to be nerfed. And look, here's the thing, people. The developers never ever said that they wanted melee to be dead. And they don't. They don't want melee to be dead. There's a lot of people out there who love melee. Who prefer melee over guns. And like doing the hack and slash thing. So the developers know this. And they aren't trying to kill melee with this nerf. No. No, it's a modest nerf. They just said that they wanted weapons and guns to be sort of closer in power to each other. And my guess is they want that to happen without having to power creep the game too much. Right? Because if they're not going to be nerfing it... What is up with your head? If they're not going to be nerfing anything at all, and just buffing guns, and putting guns at the same level as melee, they would have to be buffing them even harder than they are. They'd have to power creep the game even harder, which they probably are trying to avoid doing. So they're toning down some stuff while they're buffing the guns, and for 99.99% of the player base, you're not even gonna be noticing these nerfs. Sometimes now, for some builds, maybe you'll use primed pressure point instead of condition overload. Maybe condition overload isn't guaranteed to always be your pick, right? That's about it. So like when people say like, oh, I dislike these nerfs because, you know, they're not gonna make melee weapons bad anyway. It's like, well, yeah, like I said, that was never the intention. Like, this update was never meant to make melee weapons bad. And like, my question then is like, do you want them to be? No? No, you don't want melee weapons to be dead, right? You want them, yeah. So why do you call the update like a failure if melee weapons are still good after the update, right? I don't get it. I don't get it. Like, this nerf will only be felt by people playing Steel Path endurance runs that last for several hours. The rest of like the 99% of the player base won't even notice it. Like, that's the level of overpowered that melee weapons currently are. Moving on. So I've seen people say that like they look at these new mods and they say that they don't think they're gonna be like all that impactful. They don't think they're gonna be like all that good, which is also like a weird sentiment. Like I said, the criticism is all over the place. It's all over the place. It's hard to make any sort of sense out of it. There's no sort of like consensus on what the criticism even is. I don't think people even know all that well what they think about this. But anyway, I think you'll be surprised by these mods. When I look at them and their effects and their stats and stuff, I think you're in for a fun surprise. Like, you heard it here first, people. Guns are going to be goddamn fantastic in Steel Path once you get a hold of these. Guns are going to be able to do some bonkers fucking shit in Steel Path that they currently can't do. Guaranteed. But, like, you need to understand where these mods are meant to be useful. So, like, when you say, like, oh, melee will still be the only way to kill, like, level cap enemies, then yeah, yes, that is correct. That is 100% true. Melee will still probably only be sort of the way to kill level cap enemies. But, like, my question then is, like, how, you in particular, just, yeah, you, I'm pointing at you, the viewer of this video. How often have you fought against level cap enemies in your years playing Warframe? Like, if you are representative of 99.9% of the player base of this game, then the answer to that question is going to be never. You've never done it. But you may have done something like an hour in Steel Path on Mott, right? You may have done like 2 hours in an endurance run. Maybe 1 or 2 of you have even done like a 3-hour run, or like do that from time to time and stuff. But that's about it. So like, if this update, like if the end result of this update is that it makes guns like actually useful in Steel Path, but only up to like level 400, like, is that bad? No, that's awesome. Because that's like, even for people who play Steel Path, that's where you're gonna be. You're gonna be in levels like 100 to 400. There's just so few people are ever gonna like go beyond that point. Practically no one does. And like, and even for those that do, like, nothing has been taken away from them. They're still gonna be able to do that with melee weapons just like before. Like, it'll be a bit harder for them, you know, with the nerfs to melee weapons and to nerfs to like the Kuva Nukor. But like, hey man, those are the same people who usually complain like that Warframe doesn't have any challenging content. So we've been over this, people. We've been over this in videos before. right? The people talking about this game and critiquing this game and stuff, they don't know what they want. Moving on. So a criticism that I've seen, or like just a talking point that I've seen, is the argument that DE should only ever buff things. They should never nerf things, they should only buff things. Because people don't like nerfs. They have invested things into stuff, and then that stuff gets nerfed, and then people get upset. So therefore, they should only ever buff. Like, first of all, the obvious like counterpoint is like that philosophy leads to power creep, and you can see a lot of games where like power creep that has just been left unchecked has not been positive for the game's experience. But I'm gonna toss something out here, and this is gonna sound weird to you people. This is gonna. You have to have an open mind to what I'm saying here, okay? So long as you don't change functionality of an item, like for example the Kuva Nukor, right? That got changed functionality. That gun simply doesn't work the same way they used to. That's an actual sort of nerf, right? But as long as you don't change functionality and it's just changing a number value on a weapon, then there is no difference between a nerf and a buff. None. They are the same thing. Alright? Because all this is are just numbers on a screen. They don't change your gameplay experience. Okay? If you have one scenario where you nerf something by lowering one number, and then that leads to an enemy being able to be killed in 3 seconds. Sure. Then you have another scenario where you instead buff the weapon by a certain percentage, but you also raise the enemy's health by a certain percentage, so that your gun does more damage, but the enemy also has more health. So you got a bigger number, and the bigger number, and the end result is that you still fire the same amount of bullets, and you kill the enemy in 3 seconds. Nothing has changed functionally about how the game is played, but one of these things is a nerf, and the other is a buff, and the only difference between them is the number that gets displayed on your screen. One will show you a big number, and one will show you a small number, and being shown the big number releases endorphins and dopamine and makes you happy, and being shown the small number on the screen makes you angry. But it's the same thing. Nothing is different about them. It's just which number is displayed on the screen. So, but that's psychology. That's how people work. That's how the human brain works. People are receptive to buffs, and they dislike nerfs for that reason. So, you know, one could argue that like, oh, well, if that's the case, if that's really how easy people are to trick, then you should only buff. But like, yeah, maybe, right? Maybe. And then eventually you get like this situation where every number that gets displayed on the screen is in the billions, and everything just feels kind of dumb. But the point is, like, stop being so upset about nerfs, because like it doesn't change. It's the same thing. It's the same thing as a buff. There's nothing different about it. Now, if they do actually sort of change functionality on something, so it doesn't work the same way, then I get that people are upset about it. If they sort of have invested in it, and it's like a singular thing that gets like singled out and whatnot. Now, note that they didn't do that here for melee weapons. They didn't nerf like any sort of weapon stat-wise or anything, which have gotten people pissed, because that's like an asymmetrical thing. No, they just nerfed the mod, so it's like equal for everyone. Like, what do you lose out on? You lose out on the endo you have invested into upgrading that mod. But hey, like I just said, these mods are still gonna be best in slot. These mods are still gonna be used in all melee weapons. Nothing has changed. There's still the best option to put in there, and you won't notice a difference. Now, the Kuva Nukor nerf is different, because they actually changed how the gun works. But But that's actually a pretty smart hit as well, because number one, the Kuva Nukor is not something you can purchase from the market. You can't purchase that with platinum. No one spent platinum getting a Kuva Nukor. Unless they bought someone's lich or something. But then you still have to hunt it down, okay? So, the investment in the Kuva Nukor is the time that it took you to kill your lich that had a Kuva Nukor. That's the investment. And then you put some Forma into it. But hey, that's why everyone who has a Kuva Nukor is going to be given 2 built Formas, just to sort of compensate for that, so that people don't feel like they're losing out on something that they have invested in. So, like, they even got that base covered, man. Man, they even got that base covered. And also, like I've talked about this before, the Kuva Nukor is the single most used secondary weapon in the entire game. It is so good that it cancels out everything else. Like, there's no reason to ever use another secondary that's not the Kuva Nukor, because it's just outclasses everything else in the game. Not just for status spreading, but damage as well. It's like, just, it kills things. You tried using it, you can like just fry things in a second in the steel path with a Kuva Nukor and nothing else. So, like, it's warranted. It's too good. Moving on. Quick thing, I've seen some people say that, like, oh, they think that, like, doom and gloom, the Kuva Nukor is dead now. I don't think it is. I don't think the Kuva Nukor is going to be dead based on this change. It's a heavy hit, but this is kind of like with melee, right? They're so overpowered that even taking a heavy hit, they're still going to be the go-to. I think even after this very heavy hit that the Kuva Nukor is getting, it's still going to be in the top 5. It's still going to be in the top 5 of like the best secondaries. That's my call. But you know what? Even if it's dead, it's probably sort of warranted. Because of like the play rates, where it cancels out every other secondary in the game. No other secondary can see play so long as the Kuva Nukor exists, and that's sort of boring from a design perspective. Why even bother making new weapons when they're just going to be compared to the Kuva Nukor? Everyone's going to confirm that they're not as good as the Kuva Nukor, and then they're never going to see play. You can't have one weapon that's so much better than all other weapons that it just cancels everything out. It's pointless to even design anything else. Like, it needed a nerf. It needed a nerf, so I don't care. And what's good about this is, like, it's a fairly universal nerf. Like I said before, it hits everyone equally, because everyone has a Kuva Nukor. And no one paid platinum for it. So, alright, sure. Then there's like a similar question that comes up where people ask, like, okay, but like, you talk about power creep as if that's like a bad thing, but who cares about power creep in a single player game, right? What does that matter if we have power creep in a single player game? Like, we can understand if it was like a multiplayer thing with PvP or whatnot, but this is PvE, so like, who cares about power creep? And look, like, this is actually a legitimate question, and it's actually an interesting question. The problem here is that answering that question is going to have to be its own video, because that answer is going to take about like half an hour or so. I'll just say that, like, that's pretty much what my next installment of my video essay series on Warframe, The Divide, where I talk about sort of these design philosophy stuff. That's pretty much what the next episode is going to be about. It's going to be dedicated to this kind of question. So unfortunately, I'm gonna have to leave that one unanswered for now. I'll say that, like, that's all I can say is it's a legitimate question. It's worth addressing. Who cares about power creep in a single player or PvE game? We'll get to that, but it's gonna be its own video. Moving on. Alright, here's a point of contention I've seen that people have criticized. They say that, like, oh, you farm the mods in Steel Path, but you need the mods in Steel Path. So it's kind of like self-defeating. Because, like, oh, but you need them, but in order to get them, you have to be able to already clear that sort of content, which means that you don't need them and stuff you're kind of missing the point here, people. Like, this is not the same as Eidolon hunting when that came out. and you just had like the mote amp, right? And you were forced to actually use the mote amp to fight eidolons in order to just, you know, be able to farm for better amps. That's not the case here. Like we have lots of ways of already being able to clear steel path today, right? We have melee weapons that can clear steel path just fine. As I've shown you in this video, you can already clear steel path with your guns, albeit not as efficiently as you can with melee weapons. And hell, we have Warframes who can clear steel path without even having to goddamn use a single weapon at all. Here, I'll show you. Real quick, we're gonna dive right back in. Let's go, Garuda. Yeah. Alright, here, look at this. Weapon, what do I need weapons for? Weapon, what do I need weapons for? Weapon, what... I have to have something equipped. It won't allow me to unequip all 3 weapons. That's fine. I'll stick with my melee weapon here because, you know... Otherwise, I'd be able to use, like, the talons anyway. Gotcha. Here, I make Helminth build guides. This is my Reeve Garuda, okay? I'll show you. This is Steel Path, by the way. Let's pick, I don't know. Let's pick Steel Path Survival. Good old classic Steel Path Survival. Big old endurance runs. How many hours do you want to go for? I'm not going to use weapons. It's going to be fine, people. Let's jump in.
Accept your death, and you may yet avoid it. Trust
I will avoid it.
Your training.
Alright, here we go.
Life support has been cut off.
So,
trying to choke you
here's
out.
what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna drain my health. There, I'm at 2 health. Now I'm back at full health. And let's do this, and let's do this. Well, I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna do this, and everything's dead. Oh, look at that. Steel Path. I don't get it. I don't get it. Is this supposed to be hard or something? Whee! Whee! We can do this all day, people. We can do this all day. Nothing is gonna be able to touch me. I'm gonna just deplete my own health because that's fun. And then I'm gonna be back up to full health, and I'm gonna do this, and everything's dead. So, like, I understand that this might seem a bit wonky, what I'm doing here. That, like, you can't even sort of understand what I'm doing. Which is fine. What I'm doing is playing Steel Path. Need more energy. Whee!
Life support
I zoomed too fast. Need more energy. Okay, I'm back up to full energy and full health. That's great. Now let's kill everything. Whee! Yeah. This tunnel is probably a bad idea. So, like, the point is, like, we have Warframes that can like, we can farm Steel Path just fine today, right? But however, what people have been talking about before is, you know, complaining about the fact that we don't really have any good reason to play the Steel Path. It's like, oh, you do the Steel Path dailies to get some Kuva every week, and every 8 weeks you can get like an Umbra Forma, but other than that, there's just no reason to farm Steel Path. There's like no point to it, really. So, hey, you know what? You know what? Maybe that's kind of what the intention was here, to give, like, just, you know, people a reason to farm Steel Path, so that you can get some sort of cool upgrades that you can't get anywhere else. It's like endgame, you know, stuff that you get rewarded for you know, being able to clear the hardest levels of content. Maybe that's something that was lacking from the game. Maybe that's what they were thinking when they put it in the Steel Path store. I don't know. Point is, like, that's a good thing. It's just it's not a complaint. It's a good thing. Ugh. Moving on. I've seen people say that these mods should be in arbitrations instead, because arbitrations are kind of like a midway point between the normal star chart and the Steel Path. No! No, 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 please, please, no, no, please, God, no, 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 no! Arbitrations suck. Okay, arbitrations suck. They're not fun. Oh my god, this goddamn suggestion that I've seen. No, people, this is like Revenant, okay? This is like when they had the plan for Revenant and then the community suggested that they're gonna do like an Eidolon frame instead. Like, Revenant was supposed to be this sort of cool vampire frame, and then DE actually listened to the community, and as a result, it got a worse design than it would have gotten if they just hadn't listened at all. Do not try to make DE force people to play arbitrations. Do not trick them into following this really terrible suggestion and put like these mods in like just arbitration rotations instead. I will find you if you manage to do that. I will find you and I will delete Warframe from your computer. I know you can just reinstall it. I know, I understand that, but like this, it's all I've got. It's a fairly impotent threat. I recognize that. Anyway, no, that talking point needs to die. Do not put these rewards in goddamn arbitrations. Alright, so this is an interesting one, and I can actually talk about at length about this one. The whole thing about despawning steel essence. That they're going to introduce a change now where steel essence is going to despawn if you don't pick it up. Which is, is the case for most other resources as well in the game, but now they're going to do that for steel essence. And the reason for that is because people have found, I'm not going to call it an exploit because it's not really an exploit, maybe a little bit, but not really, where you don't pick up steel essence when you farm for it. You run with a Smita Kavat and you just leave the steel essence on the ground and you wait to get your Smita Kavat charm buff, and then you go and pick up all the steel essence, and then you get like, twice as much, 4 times as much, 8 times as much, and whatever. So it's a method people were using to hoard large amounts of steel essence fast. And that's going to be harder to do now, because now it's like, hey, you have 5 minutes to get that Smita buff, and if you don't pick up your steel essence in 5 minutes, it's going to despawn. And people are like, sort of confused about this change and like why they are instating this change. And like I can explain what I think it is. Like, hey, I might be wrong. I don't think I am. I think I understand what it's about and why they're doing it this way. And the reason is because of balance. It's a weird kind of balance. It's about the balancing of an economy. It's about balancing what things should cost and what not. When they introduce something new to Teshin store, they have to figure out, alright, so how much steel essence should this cost to buy? And they look at sort of like the player base, they look at like people's farming rates, they look at how much steel essence the average player has and how fast they can farm steel essence. And then it becomes a problem, or like everything gets thrown out of whack, if like 1% of all players have like 2,000 times more steel essence than everyone else has. And then the problem is like, how do we balance the store? How do we balance what things are supposed to cost? Do we balance it from the people who have a million, billion, gazillion steel essence, or do we balance it around people who have like less? And they obviously want to balance stuff around people who have less, because that's the vast majority of all players. And there's a tiny fraction of players who have more. So things need to be cheap enough to where your average player can get them. And that's the problem, because then all those people are hoarding, they can just clean out the store in like a millisecond. So, the solution to that is to try to remove these sorts of exploits so that you don't have one method of farming that a small minority of players are doing, so that it'll be easier to balance the economy. Like, I think that's what it's about. I think that's the rationale behind DE, why they are doing this. Which kind of means that, hoarding this way is sort of like counterproductive anyway, because like they're gonna balance the economy around people who have less anyway. So you'll never need this much steel essence that you are hoarding. So I don't know. Kind of a waste of time to farm that much for it. Like look at stuff like Cryotic. Stuff like the Cyber and whatnot, they cost a stupid amount of cryotic. It's because they had like an event before where like some veteran players farmed like millions of cryotic and stuff. And then when they were gonna like determine how much cryotic it should cost, they sort of looked at like what your average player had in their inventory, and they got this dumb number, and that's why the Cyber costs like 60,000 cryotic or whatever the hell it is to build it. So that's what happens when you balance an item around the players who are hoarding, rather than balancing it around the average player. So, like, that's kind of what I'm thinking. Anyway, that's just a speculation on my part. Just what I think it's about. Moving on. I have seen the argument that people don't like the drain on the new Galvanized mods because they use so much drain, so they're gonna be limited in what I can use and what I can fit into my builds. And they post these sort of screenshots where they just use all of the maximum capacity mods that they can fit in a weapon to show that like it doesn't fit. And to that I have to ask, like, yeah, well, what? But that's the entire point of having a capacity ceiling, right? That's the point, so that you're forced to make choices about how to build weapons. You're not supposed to be able to fit all of the maxed out highest drain mods in a thing. Like, if you could fit all of them in, then like what's the point of even having a capacity ceiling? There is no point to it in that case. So yeah. Also, it's not even universal. Some of these new Galvanized mods, they even have less drain than their normal counterparts. Galvanized Hell has less drain than Hell's Chamber does. So, like, just not even sure that universally it's even true that it's going to be hard to fit the new mods in. Some of them maybe, but like, hey, guess what? That's what we have the Kuva Lich weapons for, and soon the Sisters of Parvos weapons, because they go up to level 40. So, you know, it's going to be fine. You're not going to have any problem slotting in any mod you want into those. So you know, I'm just tossing that out there. It's going to be fine, people. You're going to be able to use them. Finally, I'm going to address a bit of criticism that I levied before that I was a bit wrong about. Where I was a bit worried about like how Arcane Unlockers and stuff were going to be purchasable through Platinum, maybe. And it felt like it was going to sort of like be a way to milk players out of Platinum and stuff like that. Because you kind of feel like you need to. But I was wrong about that. Because like I've come to learn that they're not going to be a market item. You won't be able to buy Arcane Unlockers from the market, which I'm actually quite happy about. And they're going to be sort of cheap in terms of Steel Essence, as far as I've understood it. It's going to be like 15 Steel Essence for an Arcane Unlocker, which is honestly kind of nothing. Kind of nothing, right? You can farm that in like less than an hour. It's like 30 minutes in survival or something. And you have enough Steel Essence for an Arcane Unlocker. That's fine. And the Arcanes are going to have a 100% drop chance from Acolytes. Which is like, okay, so you're actually going to be able to farm them pretty consistently and pretty fast if you just play Steel Path. You, like, and Acolytes are going to spawn like twice as often as well. But like, I thought that this was going to be like a slog, but that doesn't sound like a slog to me. That sounds like it's not going to take all that long for you to have them. So that's, you know, it's pretty good. Alright, people, you came for the takes. These are my takes. I understand that a lot of people are in uproar right now and pretending as hard as they can to be angry about this update. Oh my god, are people pretending to be angry? I am here to serve as a counterpoint to that because... What the fuck? This is a cool update. I don't understand where people's heads are when it comes to this. I really don't. I don't get it. Lighten me up, or like enlighten me, right, in the comment section, people. What am I missing here? What am I supposed to be angry about? Because I am not seeing it. I'm not. I'm looking forward to this. This is gonna be rad. This is gonna open up a bunch of new stuff for me. It's gonna make Steel Path so much more fun when I can use guns, because I think guns are more fun than melee, and I'm gonna be able to use guns now. That's cool. I have a new thing to farm for. It's gonna give me a whole lot more incentive to play Steel Path that I didn't have before. That's cool. The helmet updates. That's cool. It's just I'm seeing a lot of stuff to be excited about. So I don't know. If you're not, hey man, you do you. I'm gonna do me. I'm gonna be over here and have fun. That seems like a better use of my time than just being angry. But maybe that's just me. Anyway, that's the take. I'll see you again tomorrow. As always, for something completely different.